or what God has done in Haiti. And so, of course, I was born and raised in Haiti and came from a large family of 12. Um, and then my parents first came to the United States. And my father used to be involved in politics, and that's how he was able to get out of Haiti to come here and looking for a better life for his children. And then every year, then my parents would send for all the kids to be with them and to join them and then work together, join income, and then care for the children who was left behind. And one year after the next, then until it was my time to come, and I was about 15 years old. So when my parents left, I was about 5. And it was about 8 years later, until 8 to 9 years later, when I came back here to join my parents. But the good thing that happened, though, before I left Haiti, I became a Christian. By that I mean, of course, we were raised Catholic, but at the same time, we did not have like a close relationship with Christ. So, of course, we gone to church and got baptized, first communion, then confirmation. But yet, that was the rituals that we go through when we are Catholic. And because the country is somewhat as recognized by the Vatican after the independence, so that's why the whole country became Catholic. And but then the experience that I had personally is before I came to the United States, the family where I was staying with, had an experience. They had a kid that was very sick, and so they offered the family to pray for the kid, because otherwise the family would constantly go to witchcraft and to find healing, to find solution for the kid that was sick. I mean, that's usually the mentality of most people when they have a loved one that are sick. So there's a reason behind it. And then they try to find other ways, because for lack of doctors, lack of medical care. So that's what the family would do. But then until they find this Christian woman who offered to pray for the family, but for 40 days and 40 nights. And it was during that time I was traveling and to be with this family. And then so every day, every evening, there will be constant prayer. And they had the house. And then almost like a revival from different churches would come and just pray for this kid that was sick and who lived in New York City. And then sure enough, after 40 days and 40 nights, the kid got better. And then as a result, almost every family members from all walk of life, whether they were in Canada, in Philadelphia, or in Miami, or in New York City, as well in Haiti, came to know Christ personally. And that's when I was experiencing knowing Christ for the first time. And then came to the United States. So my focus in life was God and school. So I got to New York City, then where my parents were living. Then I was sent to Boston for schooling, started high school. And then after that, after the first year, then I was transferred to New York and then to be with my family again. So there I graduated high school. Then after high school, graduated college, went to City College in New York, where I graduated with an engineering degree. But yet I was also very much involved in the church. I went to a Wesleyan church in Brooklyn, New York. It was a Haitian congregation, and I was very much involved. So I became the youth leader in that church, because everywhere I go, that's my life. I always be involved and then give it my all. So that's why the church saw that in me to become the youth leader. But prior to that, I used to watch a lot of TV. So that's how I get to also learn English, because I didn't speak any English when I first came to the United States. And then by watching TV, I used to watch all the soap opera, from The Young and the Restless, As the World Turned, One Life to Live, General Hospital, almost all of them. But as well, I used to also watch The Brady Bunch. But one day also I saw in the news a big famine in Africa, in particularly Ethiopia. and they were showing you the children that were dying of starvation and that was malnourished. And somehow by watching and seeing that, then I felt very touched by that. Why so many kids are dying of starvation? There's so much here. By here I mean United States. But never came to mind that in Haiti there was just as much as poor. Because when I left Haiti, and I didn't think that I was going to go back. I didn't have any reason to go back because my parents were here in the United States, as well as all my brothers and sisters. And then my grandmother who had raised us had passed away. So there was no need to go back to Haiti. And the thing is also, I had no idea if Haiti was really poor. Because when I lived in Haiti, I was among all the kids. I was with the kids. I was one of the kids. So what we did not have, we did not care about. Because we didn't have any reason to compare. We didn't have anything to compare with. But then I continue on with school, and then after college, I had the privilege of taking 30 young adults from my church to Urbana, Illinois, at this big conference. And so the theme of the conference was PACE, P-A-C-E, People Answering Call to Evangelism. So there, I heard for the first time some very powerful speakers, like Tony Campolo, Evie Hill. And then what really made an impact in my life is the fact that I heard the song sang by Steve Green, People Need the Lord. And the reason I said that's about that song is because as the song was being sang, and they were showing in the background Jesus and the disciple going out to different villages and reach out to the poor, to the sick, and to the brokenhearted. And somehow I was convinced there and then that's where I want to be. I want to be where God is. Because people need the Lord all throughout the world. And still never thought I would go back to Haiti. And because usually when people leave Haiti, they don't go back. But then my parents, who have lived in the United States for about 20 years, my father was a doorman for Salvation Army at the Salvation Army headquarters in New York City. And my mother was a home attendant. So they came to age, and then all their children are living in the United States. So they said, they want to get out of the cold and then go back home. And my father could now have gone back to Haiti because the dictator that was there at the time, Duvalier, had also left the country. So then he could have gone back also. So a year later, then I decided to go and visit them after having left Haiti for about 8 years. So when I went back to Haiti, after having left for 8 years, that's when I saw the need that I'd never seen before when I lived in Haiti. And you could understand why, because growing up in Haiti, all the kids, we all were the same. I mean, we didn't have much, but we didn't have to worry about much. If we had to play ball, because that's one of our big thing, playing soccer, so we use an orange. And that was our ball. Or sometimes even kick a rock. That was also our ball. So we make anything that we could make round, we use that to play with. And there are times I know we were hungry, but we were satisfied with very little that we'd find. Whether it's a little piece of bread, peanut butter, and that was satisfying us. But then when I got to see all those children when I went back that couldn't go to school, and seeing people that did not have a job, did not have an income to take care of the family. Unemployment by 90%. People died literally because for lack of health care. One doctor for about 100,000 people. So you can imagine what happened to people when they get sick. They basically die. So it's the children. Then I start to think, how privileged that I was, having come from there, but yet was able to get out and to come here in the United States and to acquire an education, to have a place to stay, to have a job. And yet so many others did not have that privilege. So somehow I felt when I came back after having spent a week with my parents, my life was never the same. So no longer do I see the children in Africa that needed help. It's the children in Haiti which is close to my home, that I saw that needed help. So constantly I keep thinking, how can I give back to what I've been given? How can I help and help others who also so desperately need help? But of course, not immediately, though I was thinking about that, did I go back. But then I still went on living, doing my daily routine. After college, I got a job with Homes for the Homeless. And I was the director of operation there, was making some good living. But then came the recession, then lost my employment. Then I decided to go back to Haiti. I said, now there's nothing else to hold me back here. Of course, my parents are no longer here, nor do I have a job here. So I said, well, best thing to do, go to Haiti. Of course, just the fact that I mentioned to people that I was going back to Haiti, people thought I was crazy just to think that you going to go to Haiti. And it was in the most critical history of Haiti, where Haiti, for the first time, has elected a president democratically by the name of Aristide. And then within 7 months in power, was ousted by this brutal military coup. So their country was in complete chaos, turmoil. And there I was, wanting to go back. You know, my parents, all my brothers and sisters, all my church thought I was crazy for wanting to go. Of course, that created a fear in me, thinking that, well, what if they are right? You know, what am I going to do? But somehow I was convinced that this is the place where God was calling me to go. And I said to myself, if 8 million people at the time can live in Haiti, so can one more. So that's always their way of thinking in Haiti. Whether the car is full and packed, there's always room for one more. And so I packed my bag. So there was not much to pack. And then went to Haiti. So by the time I got to Haiti, everybody said, you know what, give me your passport. I need to get out. And it was the time that you heard about the boat people. Everybody was trying to get out. Get on a little boat, try to come to the United States. And as a result, many of them died, lost their lives. You know, but then my goal was to see how can I reach to the people, to the children, to tell them the good news that God can give them hope, that God is there to help them, God is there to save them in spite of the suffering, the misery, the turmoil, the chaos. You know, but then my couple of friends that I get to meet, and we decided the best thing to do is to start school. And so back in 1994, 21 years ago, we started a kindergarten. On the first day of the school, we had about 84 children. And with the goal that they would come and get a good education, and at the same time being introduced to the Word of God. Because we said to ourselves that education is the key to get people out of poverty, is the key to help them to secure a better life. But then we also said if those kids who are educated and they know Christ, then they got their future made insecure. So then every year afterward, then we would start another grade, from one grade to the next. From 84, the next year the kids go to 150 and so on. But we first asked the kids to also contribute low, something like $1 a month toward the tuition, so that could help pay the teachers. But at times the parents couldn't afford that much because they were not working. They also have to ask others so that they could have to send the kids to school. So there were times where we didn't have enough money to pay the teachers. Then I would come back to New York City and drive a cab. So the money that I would generate from driving a cab would go back to pay the teachers. So for 3 years in a row, every time we went short on cash, then I would quickly run to New York City for about a month and work 24 hours and almost sleep in the cab. And then so I could make enough money to go back. But in the process of driving a cab in New York City, I got mugged about 5 times. So a lot of the time when people said, it's so dangerous to go back to Haiti, I said, well, go to New York and see where's dangerous. So last time I got mugged was at gunpoint. Then I said, I was so fearful for my life. I said, maybe that's not what God wanted for me. So I went back to Haiti and totally depend on God. I said, God, this is your ministry, this is your people, this is your work, this is your kingdom. So you help support it. And sure enough, God bring people from all walks of life, from everywhere. And where today we have so many people like you who's been very generous and supported our mission, of our ministry. So from having 84 kids, now today we have about 2,400 students in our school. And you should see the kids, they're so precious. Not only in our eyes, but of course in the eyes of God. Beautiful children. And they are here today. And so one thing led to another. You know, kids would come to school 7 o'clock in the morning and having to go home by 3 o'clock. They're hungry. They had nothing to eat, no breakfast. And then they spend the whole day in school, nothing, because we couldn't feed them. And then the teachers would come back and tell us, you know, the kids cannot concentrate come noontime because they're so hungry. And that reflected also their report cards. They were not doing well. And the kids would cry. I mean, the kid would not hesitate to tell you they're hungry. Of course, you can imagine you trying to educate those kids and them telling you they're hungry. So that also touches you. So our goal was to how we can find a school program. And sure enough, we have a school from Ohio who said, you know what, let's get other kids involved. And then, so sure enough, within a week of fundraising, they raised about $6,000. And there started our lunch program. So today, the kids are filled with excitement every day just to come to school because they know they're going to get a meal. And the parents can't wait to send their kids to school because they know they're going to have a meal. So that's why we're so excited about that. But then you think that would stop right there. Then we got it made, the kids are in school now being fed. So today we are feeding 3,000 people every single day. Whether it's rice and beans or beans and rice the next day. You know, but still, it's exciting just to have a meal. And then one day on Monday, one of the second graders came to school and sick. And then on Wednesday, we heard the kid died. What did he die of? Simple fever. No idea because they couldn't go to the doctor because there were no doctors around. So we had also other teachers, staff members that also been sick and died. And then last thing, then my mother, of course, woke up one day with a stroke, took her to the only government hospital. For 3 days she lay down in a coma, no help. Then I took her to the Dominican Republic, tried to get some help. By the time we got there, then she passed away. That also see the need to bring some kind of health care there into the school. Because if we try to educate the children and they are sick, that's not going to help them much. And if they are hungry, that's not going to help them either. So we started a clinic. So today we have about 8 doctors. We have a full staff, and some of our students are now nurses in our clinic. And so today we are seeing over about 20,000 people every year. And so many lives as a result of being saved of this clinic. But then we saw our kids are graduating from high school and we're able to acquire some scholarship, but not a whole lot. So we said, what about the rest? What are we going to do for them? Are they going to just sit there? So what's the use of trying to educate them if they cannot continue or do something? So then we started a technical school. So again, the idea of the technical school, so the kids can also get a trade, and then be gainful into society. If they cannot go to college, but then at least they could learn something. So we started an auto mechanic, we started a sewing program, then we started an electrical program, and a computer program, business accounting, so that they also can have something to look forward to. But then we saw that the kids come to school, well, they needed a haircut. So we started a barbershop. So we have a barbershop. See, if I look clean today, it's because of that barbershop. So I always tell the kids that they need to look always sharp. And then after the barbershop, then we started a bakery. We knew that people like bread, and that's one of the things that people like to eat is bread. That if we have business also, like a bakery, that will also generate some extra income And that's the idea, not only creating more jobs for people in the community and for our kids, but yet it was a way to see establish different type of business and to see how we could bring some extra income within the school. So that was the idea of the bakery. So today we have good pizza. So if people come by the area, this is where you find the best pizza. And this is the only place where you find it too. And then we also even have opened a storefront. So there's bakeries at the school, but then we have a storefront right in the middle of town where people also can go to the town and then get some fresh, just like a little Panera bread, like Starbucks of Guatemala. And so we also serve coffee and bread as well. And so then afterward, then we started a chicken farm. We had about 5,000 chickens, to have eggs, so that not only to eat eggs, but yet to sell. And then the proceed, the benefit also will go to help support the school. Of course, the kids were looking forward to one day to have breakfast. They said if we ever had breakfast, they would never come to school late. They always be on time. And then they said, if we decide to serve supper, they'll never go home. But this is all the excitement that we try to produce and create. And the last thing we've done also, we have our apartments. So we have about 14 apartments, and now we're in the process of building 5 more, which is all full right now to help bring professionals in the area. Because a lot of the time people say, if I come to one, where would I stay? Where would I live? Where is it safe? So the idea, again, creating like a little village, a secured area with security, and then they have all furnished, electricity, they have cable TV, internet. So there's a place where they could be comfortable. And that's the idea. So if you decided to come to Haiti, there's a comfortable place for you to be. So I feel like God has blessed us tremendously and beyond. And our kids are graduating, they are going to college. So today we are very proud that we have 15 of our students who are in college, finished college, now they are working with us. One of them is chief financial officer doing our books. One of them is the administrator, dean of students, and then in charge of the library, bookstore, teaching, and then some of them are nursing at the clinic. So we feel very proud to see that God is continue to help us and then to prepare the next generation. So we are looking forward for these kids when they finish, for them to come back and then be a help to Haiti and to the next generation. And so this is where our ministry is today. But what I want to speak to you today is basically from the Word of God. And I like to read this passage, couple passages. And one of the passages, we find it in the book of Joshua, first chapter, verse 9. I command you, God speaking to Joshua, be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or discouraged, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. Another passage that we'll find in Isaiah 41. I can find it quick. Verse 10. It says, don't be afraid, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you with my victorious right hand. And the last passage that we find it in John, the book of John, chapter 14, verse 27. It says, I am leaving you a gift, peace of mind and heart. And the peace I give isn't like the peace the world gives. So don't be troubled or afraid. So the title of my message to you this morning is the word, don't be afraid. So many people all over the world today are afraid. Afraid of life, afraid of noise, afraid of darkness, afraid of each other. And as we've seen today, just last weekend, what happened in Paris, a whole country now is living in fear. All the borders were closed because of terrorist act, which I believe all of you who are here can relate to when 9/11 happens. So constant fear that people have to live with. You know, ever since we were born, from the very beginning, even the day of Adam and Eve, after they have eaten the forbidden fruit, they also became afraid. As God was speaking to Joshua and then to the people of Israel, after having to leave Egypt and then to go to the promised land. So they were afraid. Where are we going? Going to the desert to die? Or for Pharaoh to follow us and kill us? So they also afraid. So God was trying to encourage them, don't be afraid, for I will be with you. You know, we are afraid ever since we are born. You know, after we were so comfortable in our mother's womb, and yet we have to come out and see the light. We're afraid of the light. Some of them are afraid of darkness, afraid of being alone, afraid of just being hungry, you know, afraid of to know what we're going to do, of the unknown. And then as we get older, you know, we also afraid, whether in school, what are we going to choose for career? What are we going to do for testing? Are we prepared? You know, are we going to do okay? Even taking our first driving lesson, are we going to be able to do okay? Are we going to be able to do even a parallel parking? You know, so constantly we live our lives being afraid. And then as we become adults, so there's more fear. So we're afraid, are we going to get a job? Are we going to be able to take care of our family? What if the kids are sick? What are we going to do? What is the doctor's going to say? What if they find out that we are ill or we have some kind of problem, some kind of disease? So we're just afraid of life in general. So we're afraid that, you know, I was coming here and I was flying and I get up to go to the bathroom. So I was afraid of people looking at me, being afraid. Because you heard so many stories, you know. People are watching you when everybody get up, everybody's watching you. What is this guy going to do? Where are they going? So you've been afraid of trying to see people being afraid. You know? Because now people are afraid of flying. You've been afraid of trying to get in a car because you don't want to get into an accident. You're afraid of even walking because you don't want to fall. You know? My brother just turned 65 and decided to retire and then wanted to move back to Haiti. And so with him being in Haiti for about 2 weeks, we were also celebrating my father's 95th birthday. And he got a stroke. And he'd never been sick in his whole life. That was his first illness, and he just had a stroke and paralyzed on his right side. So now he keep talking about being afraid. He's afraid to eat because he's not sure if the food's going to do him good. So a lot of the time we're afraid to eat because we don't want to be too big or we don't want to be too thin. You know, we're afraid that there's something about the water. We're afraid of drinking water. What if this water is contaminated by something? So in general, we live our lives being afraid. But yet, for as many times God talks about afraid in the Bible, so many people experience being afraid, but yet God is telling us, as he had told the people of Israel, don't be afraid. Why? Because I'm right there with you. If God is right next to you, is right with you, why should we be afraid? But yet, though in the midst of fear, you can be assured that God's presence is right next to you. So that means you do not have to be afraid. So you can be encouraged. You can have that strength, again, knowing that in the midst of fear, that you have God on your side.